we've done very, very well. We're strong because we've been weak. We are now daring to question because we know and have been through the process that we've been questioned. And we're clever and we know stuff because we've done things wrong. And I think because we've gone through what we've gone through, because we've been where we've been, we find ourselves in a quite unique situation. So I'm, I suppose, running the advocacy program. And I never really thought about it as an advocacy program until I sat down to put my thoughts together about reporting to, so I could report to you. Which is an indication as to how busy we've been. The advocacy program is incredibly, incredibly busy. And I feel that we've dipped our toe in, we've succeeded and kept ourselves afloat, and we've set it off at a different pace and a different feel to anybody else's, be it union, barristers, solicitors, or whoever. I think we do it differently to the ICN and people like that. And I don't think there is many other organisations that do this and who are set up to do it. And I don't think that, to be fair, we were set up to do it. I think it's just, we're helping registrants to find, I think, people always say there are three types of truth. There's my truth, there's your truth, and there's the truth. I don't think it's that simple. I think there are shades of truth. A thing said a certain way in a different manner can make a difference. And I think what we're doing, all of us, and I'm the spokesperson for, is we're helping registrants to find better truths. And without that help, they are definitely at a disadvantage. They are, the registrant without representation or support is all at sea, open to the vagaries of that system, and that system needs scrapping and starting again. But that's not going to happen, so we've got to work with it. My missus is about to start watching that Strictly Come Dancing program again. And I'm sure some of you are as well. And I'm going to be sat in the room whilst it's going on. But to use that as an example, we need to dance with the NMC. Working for registrants in NMC proceedings is a bit like dancing. When you're a celebrity and you can't dance, and by the time you've learned to dance, it's too late because it's the end of the game. Some people pick it up quicker than others. We're going to need to do that with our registrants. We need to do it better for them. We need to get them at 10-10 as soon as possible. But we need to dance to two tunes. We need to dance to the NMC's tune and get our registrants dancing to the NMC's tune. And that, by that, I don't mean giving in, agreeing, conceding. I mean understanding how they do it and doing it with them. And then we need to have our own dance at the same time, and we don't tell them about that second dance until right at the end and until it suits us. So it sounds a bit random, but when we first decided to do advocacy, it was last minute. It was, we were the underdog. We were, if you like, begging and scraping to get the slightest bit of attention from the NMC and the panels. And over the last year, we have done 1 case a month, 2 cases a month, 3 cases a month. however many. Some of them have been last minute, but more of them have been, we've had some time. Now, I have another job, as does Kath, and Jackie, I think, has other things to do. But without the casework undertaken by Kathy and Jackie and others, without the information from other people, I couldn't do what I do. I need to drop in last minute. But before I drop in last minute, I need an awful lot of information. So my last minute might be 2 weeks before, or a month before, or whenever. We need to move away from dropping in last minute. That's fairly clear from it. So I tried to look at some statistics whilst I was preparing my thoughts. And you may find that a lot of this is random and not as organised as it could be, because necessarily the way we are working is a little random and busy at the moment. So I haven't had the time to even take a breath. But I understand there are about 5,000 or 6,000 cases on the go at any one time. That's what I could find out. It seems that about 1,500 of those settle one way or another each year. And I was staggered at this, that I don't know if I'm right or not, but there were, is it something like 448,000 registrants on the register. NMCWatch, that's us, set out one of its missions as providing support and advocacy to registrants undergoing NMC FTP proceedings. I didn't know how this was going to be, and I didn't know what it was going to lead to. All of us make mistakes. We've all made loads of mistakes, but it's having them in context. It's understanding what went wrong, if at all anything, and it's having a clear knowledge of what is going to happen, what is happening, and what can happen, and what we can do, what the registrant can do about it. Now, my view is that a vast majority of registrants, even now, the vast majority of registrants don't fully understand the process that they're in until they are in it. And I think part of what we've got to do is to educate, support, and prepare registrants so that the minute that we get hold of them, the fog of war, the fog of the dispute, the difficulties becomes that much less foggy and that much more clear. Almost every registrant, almost every case that we deal with involves a person who is faced with a list of complaints, a confusing letter from the NMC, and a series of problems that then take them from a we're all working together into a right, you're under the spotlight, you're isolated, and you have to make a decision about this. You have to agree or accept. You have to admit that these things are a questionable fault. You have to admit that you've done something wrong, but we're not blaming you. What we're saying to you is, we have concerns about your fitness to practice. And what we're saying is, this doesn't mean to say we're going to blame you, but then we blame you. And we're not going to punish you, but then we punish you. And getting your head around that whilst you are leading a normal life, managing a family, going to work, dealing with the normal thrust of work, dealing with the normal family life that a person has, is incredibly difficult for a registrant, a nurse, a midwife. And I think it is what then makes it worse is the process that you then follow will take you through weeks, months, and then years of struggle. And then and I'm not saying this happens all the time, but the case comes to fruition and it's run by lawyers. And on top of all the problems that you've got as a registrant, you've got to cope with understanding a complicated system that most barristers, most solicitors don't deal with. So as far as the advocacy program goes, I think we found an untapped pile of need, an untapped reservoir of need. We're at the beginning of that. Lots should change, lots should get better. And it is, if you like, very easy at this stage to take off low-hanging fruit. I find it incredibly easy and a little bit surprising and a little bit shocking how easy it is to uncover mistakes, problems in the system, bias, and the systemic failings that lead to direct unfair disadvantage for registrants. So a good example would be a hearing's just about to start. As a registrant, you've waited 2 years. You've been sent a bundle of 1,000 pages, witness statements. It's going to be done virtually. And on the morning of the hearing, or 2 days before the hearing, or a week before the hearing, somebody from the NMC will say, oh, one of the witnesses can't come. So what we're going to do is we're going to add their evidence as hearsay. And as a registrant, you would go, I don't even know what that means. And I don't even know what the advantages, disadvantage or otherwise of that would be. And the NMC will say, it's because of this, that, or the other. And you will go, okay, that's fine. The witness can't come. The witness is busy, the witness is ill, or for reasons unknown, the witness can't attend. And you'll go, okay, that's fine, I can't question that. And then you get an advocacy system that gets involved. And so we say, why didn't you tell us earlier? Did you know earlier? And we find out that it's been something that set up 6 months previously. The witness said, I'm not coming. And I'm not coming because of this, this, and this. But it takes 3 or 4 sets of questions before that even comes up. Now, how on earth would a nurse, a midwife, with all the concerns that she's got, how on earth would she have been able to get to that situation? And what we find out is that this key witness had always decided she was never coming, had decided that she wasn't coming because she felt pressured by the NMC. And all of that makes a massive difference. But simply without having an advocacy system, that little germ of truth, that better telling of the truth would be hidden. And the panel would never know. And yeah, it's wrong. The NMC are a other side to an advocacy that is adversarial, and it is not inquisitorial. It is not, let's all try and get to a truth. So lots should change. We are at the beginning. We've found a rich stream of needs. So the process is wrong and it needs to change, but it won't change. So whilst we've got the process that we've got, it needs to be worked in, and it needs to be understood. And it is not beyond the wit of any registrant's intelligence to be able to understand it, but there is no way that an unrepresented registrant is in the same position as the NMC, and in a position to fight back with equal arms. It is the difference between Russia and Ukraine, and the registrants Ukraine. So what else comes out? We're helping a growing number of registrants, sometimes by giving very short answers, sometimes by giving a lot of help. What issues do I have with the process? I give this list, and in giving it, I want to confirm that I don't think that the NMC are the enemy on the other side. I think the NMC are an organisation who have been set up with a set of rules that they have to follow, and that's what they do. And it is up to us to understand those rules, and through an advocacy process, to challenge and to put the registrants on an equal footing. My issues with the process are this: they pretend as a legal fiction that it is not adversarial, and you will not get me to change my view that this process is adversarial. We don't use the right words, we don't use those words, but the registrant is faced with blameworthy allegations that find fault and punished. The NMC will call it fitness to practice concerns, and they will talk about sanctions and impairments. But you tell me any registrant that's been struck off that doesn't feel like she's been blamed and punished, or any registrant that's been through the process of blame that doesn't feel like she's been blamed. So it's adversarial. Case management. The advocacy system proves that there is no case management system. Now, if you're part of an adversarial system, there will be a time when you sit down with the other side in front of a judge and deal with case management. The best that we've got is that the NMC themselves hold a case management hearing just before the main hearing, a month before, 6 weeks before. And we go through a checklist. That case management system is biased from the beginning because it's run by the NMC. There is no independent arbitrator in there that can make any decisions. And by then, the whole show is ready. The evidence is in. The witnesses have been seen or not seen. The problems that they're going to have are there. So, case management. Involvement within the investigative process. As an advocate, to be able to advocate for the registrants, it's important for us to know what to the side are doing and to be involved in it and able to influence it. We don't get allowed to be involved and to influence proceedings. We don't decide what the final bundle is going to be. We can make suggestions which are generally and will always be and have always been ignored. And if we don't like that, we can put our own bundle in. Now, if you're a panel, you will always find two bundles. One bundle put by the NMC and one bundle put by the registrant. What would that tell you? Well, it might tell you not to place as much value on the one by the registrant. It might tell you what the NMC think are important. So even that doesn't gel with me. Issues with the process, being accused but not being accused. You are accused of doing something wrong, but it's not accused. We're only looking at your fitness to practice. I think the NMC have got to, and the system's got to decide whether it's going to accuse you of being at fault or not. And if it's not going to accuse you, then certain processes need to be followed. And that's what we find with the advocacy system. The other thing that the advocacy system brings up is and I think I alluded to this at the beginning, the massive lack of understanding. This is a fitness to practice process. It will deal with index allegations. There will be an investigation. Then there will be a decision. Then there will be a committee. Then there will be a panel hearing. That's the process. At that panel hearing, there will be effectively 3 trials. One for the primary facts, one for impairment and misconduct, and one for sanction. I guarantee the majority of people that we found out with the advocacy system are not prepared for that. So Kathy, the first thing she does, the first thing we do, is get our retaliation and get our mitigation in first. We send them off, reflect, go and get some testimonials, go and do some courses, go and do some learning. And that's almost preparing for the inevitable outcome. So most registrants faced with the situation will go right to the end and then be rushing around looking for courses they might have done and testimonials from people who might give them. So that's a massive change. And I think we're finding more and more that our bundles are getting better and better. Our testimonials are getting better and better, and our reflections are getting better and better. So that's the massive lack of understanding. That comes down to you guys as well as me. I think we need a education part to the NMC. Advocacy, yeah, all well and good, and we can get people to understand it. But before that happens, ingrained and inbred into registrants should be greater knowledge of the NMC process when fitness to practice is questioned. There's no doubt about it. My views, having seen so many registrants going through the mill, is that if they understood it better, they would come to a better conclusion, because instead of being worried about getting into trouble and being struck off and being blamed, they would be mitigating, reflecting and managing. And so you would get a situation where a registrant, which, let's be fair, allegations are allegations and we all make mistakes, but you'll get a situation where a nurse or a midwife will go, yeah, thanks for the letter. I did make a mistake. I have learned from it. I knew about it beforehand, or now I've been told about it, I accept it. This is not a deal breaker. I am going to carry on as a registrant. And this is what I have done. This is what I am doing. And this is what I'm going to do to fix it. And that's going to give them a better approach to an NMC hearing. It's going to give them I'm meeting you as an equal, not I am in trouble and you're the person that's going to tell me off. And that's another one of my big lessons. It's not fair to see so many long-serving, dedicated, professional, hard-working, amazing registrants who are brought low, because that's the other thing as an experience. Whether registrants are successful or not, and let's not say win or lose, but whether registrants are successful or not, most of them come out, a lot of us, a lot of them come out damaged. Even successful, even, yes, nurse, yes, midwife, you were right, and we have no, or yeah, it was a minor thing and we're gonna do this. even those people say to us, this is 2 years of hell, I'm not the same person anymore, and I'm not the same professional, and it's not in a good way. And that needs to be changed as well. And that comes out very strongly. I think about how many registrants must go through this process without any help, come to the end of it and think to themselves, I am not going to be a registrant anymore. I'm not going to be a nurse or a midwife, if this is what people think of me. And yeah, I've been let off, or I feel like I've been let off. I'm off. I'm going somewhere else. I'm going to do something else. And that's just not fair. So I'm not going to go on for too much longer. I could actually talk all night. Do you get that feeling?
Simon, do you think that, Simon, do you think it's a bit more about the regulatory system? We can't really change it. It is what it is. Do you know what I mean? We can try and make them behave a bit nicer to people and a bit more humane, etc., etc. But it is what it is. So is it really about us? Education, I mean, information's power, isn't it? And educating people, and like you say, almost training people. Hopefully they'll never have to be in this situation, but when you are, be prepared, get ready, be organized, you know. Yeah, or is that completely, most people are going to just ignore it until they're, if they're...
I see layers of development. You know, we've come up to it now, and we see what's going on. It's about education for all registrants, but before that, we need to help the registrants that are going through it, and before that, we need to help registrants that are going through it to get a fair crack at the whip, to tell a better truth. The problem is, because the systems, and I will never ever change, but because the system's adversarial and because the registrant is blamed, it is all about stacking the cards against them, which means that the NMC naturally behave like an adversary, like an aggressor. So they will hide, they will cheat, they will lie, they won't tell you the truth, they will not give you information and evidence that they've got that helps you. And we have examples of it. And they do that because they need to win. And it's ripped across everything. You know, this is the bundle, like it or lump it. Well, we don't like it. We want to put some more evidence in. No, you can't. You can put it in as your own. You know,
there's no
where's the fairness in that? No, so the rules are used against the registrants, and that's what the advocacy. We need to set a system, and there isn't a system yet where every registrant is on a level pegging. There needs to be a rule devised which says that the NMC, when dealing with an unrepresented registrant, needs to disclose certain things, and not just lists of documents they don't use. If a witness is proving difficult to deal with, then as soon as that witness is difficult to deal with, because we're not allowed to deal with that witness, then because of that, we need to know. Otherwise, we need to be allowed to be involved in drafting the bundle of evidence that's going to go in front of a panel. We can't have it both ways, and at the moment they do. They keep you in the dark for as long as possible. And then who knows how many hearings have gone ahead when half-truths have been told? How many registrants have had all sorts of evidence put in through hearsay? All sorts of twists and tales that have gone on where nobody knows that it's happened. And, you know, I can think of, at any one time, we have
so many people we've been involved with where, you know, certain information, you know, particularly ones where we've come halfway through the process, so they've had a bit of the hearing already, and then we come at the second half, and you know, and so often there's key bits of evidence that either hasn't been asked for, or has not been put in front of the panel. And I think that's the thing of education, isn't it? The registrant assumes that because it's gone to the NMC, that the panel will have seen it, and they don't understand
Stockholm,
that,
isn't it? Yeah.
I think we've moved seamlessly into questions for Simon now. So, and Maria has her hand up. So, do you want to ask a question?
Yes.
All right, I'm quite patient here. I think I agree with the point of education, and I understand the challenges and the difficulties, and certainly that are faced all the time. But I think sometimes education has to start at the top. Part of that is that trust boards very often now have a patient voice 10-minute session at their board meetings. And my suggestion would be that the NMC must have a governance and training process for their board members and for new panelists, for new people that are elected onto the NMC. And part of that process of education could be NMC putting forward before them portfolio of cases that have been heard without, so they've gone, they don't have names or anything else, that can show the things that aren't always right and what they ought to consider, because they have a duty of care for an individual. And they forget that. It's like the employers that say, if somebody is employed by a trust and they're referred to the NMC and they're going through that process, but they are still employed by that entity has a duty of care for that employee. And there has to be a way of sort of targeting that a bit. And if we are engaging the NMC, as Catherine's saying, and having that sort of stakeholder thing, maybe that is an offer that could be on the table.
Sorry, I didn't get all of that because of the sound, but I mean, you're saying we should try and influence the trustees of the employers, is that, or the?
Well, I think you could. I think
what you're saying is the NMC.
But I'm talking about the NMC itself as well.
Right. Yeah.
NMC, it's the executive itself. Yeah, we have a strange relationship with the NMC. I think it's a bit like being battered to death by a butterfly. They're incredibly nice and friendly to us, and they always make the noise that we're helping and that they're going to listen to what we say. And then I have a hearing and they mess it up again. What you say is exactly right. It would be nice. I think in any given, we need to start keeping statistics and lessons learned. And I think at the end of each case, one thing that would be useful would be a debrief where we get the chance to write to the NMC and say, and I'll put it as blankly as this is where you lied.
Yeah.
This is where you were unfair. Now, statistically, I don't do that many cases, but I have 3 or 4 instances where they were less than honest with the truth already in a year. So that's too many.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Maria. If there was a way for us to get on a board,
I mean, we've asked for times about how the training is done. Have they got? I mean, Midwives Haven, for example, have asked many times. You know, how are your investigators trained? What does that training look like? What are their competency? Nothing back at all, because there's no reason. There's nothing saying they have to do that and have to provide it.
Work.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't know what that was. Strange sound.
But yeah, I think that's definitely an aspect that we need to be getting tougher on. I mean,
I'll give you a good example, which is it's the person can't be identified, etc. I'm dealing with a case, and Nothing happened for about 8 months. So we chased it a little. And then I got a telephone call from a new investigator. I'm just ringing up Simon to introduce myself. How are you? I'm all right. How are you? Yeah, all right. Good, that's fine. Just thought I'd touch base with you. I'm the new investigator. We're moving this case along. Just thought I'd let you know you'll get a response within a month. Once I've got my feet under the table, I'm the new investigator. Basically, we haven't done anything for 6 to 8 months. And when I get the reply a month later, they hadn't done anything, so nothing had happened. Now, that sleight of hand doesn't wash with me. So I write back and say, you haven't done anything, can you get on with it? And they get all affronted a little. But as part of the advocacy system, that's what you can do. But as an unrepresented registrant, you're not going to say, what have you been doing for 6 to 8 months? And she's not going to say, well, we've been doing nothing. We've just found your file that's not been managed and we've gotten rid of the investigator and now I'm doing it, which is the truth. Now, what's wrong with the truth? You know, if the midwife herself is facing allegations that she didn't do a job properly, then the NMC not doing their job properly and hiding it, is that not something that could be brought up when it comes to levels of blameworthiness? You know, if you do it, if we do it, we're in trouble, and you do it and we don't. And that is kind of something that's coming out with that case recently about administrators being held as responsible as professional registrants. You know, in NHS, why shouldn't the managers be held responsible? And I agree. But you know, that's the NMC have got away with not doing anything on a person's life for 8 months. Nothing. It's just in a file, in a cupboard. It won't be in a cupboard because obviously they're all on digital now, but it'll be in a digital cupboard collecting digital dust. Yeah. Nothing is done. Yeah. And that's that person's life. Her life is literally on hold while this carries on.
We have it.
And I think that's it. There's no consequences.
We have another hand. There's Camilla, who looks as she's on a different system now. Camilla, would you want to question? Carry on.
So, well, hi Simon. It sounds like my case is dragging on for 3 years you're dealing with, isn't it? Yeah. You're not frustrated?
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone can. Yeah, with my case, you can be open now. Don't mind.
Yeah, well, obviously we have to be careful about it because it's still a live case. But yeah, yours is. But if I talk generally about cases, quite generally, we'll get some information when we ask for it, and then we won't get everything. Yeah. And then we've got to ask for it, and then we look at it. And sometimes when we look at evidence, it's wrong.
Yes, I know.
So the evidence is wrong, and it's the sort of thing that anybody should have spotted. So again, this goes back to we're not involved in compilation of the evidence, so we're not seen as a fit group to look at it. So I will look at some evidence, we will look at it with our registrants, and they'll go, well, that's the wrong piece of paper, or that's the wrong picture,
or that's the wrong title.
That. Yeah, why isn't that? Yeah, it's the wrong title, or it's
title of the video clip.
It's biased.
Yeah,
whatever we find it's the wrong thing, but there's no desire to do that if you're part of the NMC because you want a conviction. Yeah, and I know that's the wrong word because it's
that then comes back to you know, the NMC fit to practice.
Yeah,
you know, well, I mean guys, it's my case is going on for 3 years, and hopefully it's going to the end. But despite the fact, what I want to highlight is they have to be somehow employer's responsibility or NMC responsibility for unrecognized disabilities, because that is in my case when it's huge. So I just wanted to just kind of look at it more with empathy about equality of act and disabilities. And as you know, my employer Ian is big on that, on making you know, necessary adjustments for people who have disabilities, and maybe the potential employers to be aware and be helpful more.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Yeah, well, there's always that in parts of process now, and including in the NMC, there's always that part of the process where it says, do you have a disability that we should be aware of? And if so, what can we do to help? Well,
but if somebody didn't know, Simon, if somebody didn't know at the time, what can they do? So,
well, yeah, but I mean, that's another question. But the answer to that is, you're aware of my disability. The answer is, you could get on with this case quickly. You could put me to the front, put me to the top of the pile, get somebody to look at it quickly, because that's another thing. A lot of the time and one of the things I will say is, what we find, and I do not know how registrants think of this, it'd be interesting, but you know, you've got a case and it's going to start Monday morning. So it starts, then it stops, then it starts, then it stops, then it starts. It doesn't get on until 10 o'clock, then it stops at 15:15. And then it starts at 11, and it finishes at 15:15. And it starts at 12, and then they have lunch. And you think to yourself, every time we sit down to start and introduce ourselves again, something comes up and we stop. And I don't know how that plays on registrants' minds, because you just get yourself keyed up to hear the case, and it stops. Because they need to read a document that,
like we had at the end of last week, we waited from 8:45 to start because we were under the impression that the hearing would start at 9. We then told at 11 that it was listed second, so it wouldn't start till lunchtime. We then told at lunchtime that the panel were then having their lunch, so it would start at 1. We then went back at 1. No, I think I said in a private chat, we ain't going to get back till about 2. We then got back at 2 to be told, well, we actually think now that the panel feel that they haven't got enough time to now hear this case. So we'll have to adjourn. Now, the rest of us in the working world work till 6 o'clock in the evening. So why is 4 hours not enough time to hear something? Now, to me, that makes me think that panel didn't want to hear it because they didn't want to make difficult decisions. But, you know, that's another discussion for another day. But again, no accountability for the fact that registrant has been sat since 8:45 that morning, hoping that this was going to be resolved so they could get on with their life. And they've now got to wait for the hearing to be rescheduled. It's just not good enough. It's just not good enough.
It seems to me, people, because I've only obviously been involved some years ago, as you know, Catherine, with a live case, which is bad enough. And it seems that some of the ease of the Zoom system, the online system, some of the ease, which means you don't have to travel around the country, and the cost is actually more complicated because it's much easier to interrupt, you know, because they're in a live hearing.
The reality of that is she would have paid to travel to an NMC hearing centre, sat at the hearing centre with no one talking to her and not having us there because we couldn't afford to be there and take a whole. I mean, the beauty of it was that we could get on with other things. But, you know, if this lady had a private lawyer representing her, they wouldn't have hung around for the whole day, and she would have had to probably carry on her own when it's next heard. You know, that's not justice. That's not okay.
Well, she would have had to. The lawyers won't mind sitting there, but they'll still charge her for the full day. And I mean, if we'd have all hauled down to London and sat there for a full day, only to be told it's not going ahead, that would have been.
It is. Maria's just put in the chat. It's disrespectful, and I think absolutely, Maria, that is the key. There is no respect for the registrant in it. The registrant is there because they shouldn't have got themselves in this pickle, so they've got to just put up with being treated like this.
It's funny, and Well, that's the point. That's the point of the advocacy system. Is it's somebody to do that speaking up. Now, there was no point in speaking up because it wasn't going to go ahead. But the way they did it, it was another legal slate, which is the legal advisor said, look, if we all agree, then we won't need to speak to the panel and have an application, etc. And I thought, well, it might be worth having an application to have it refused. But all that would have done would have been wasting another hour where we made the application and it was refused and the panel wouldn't have heard, because you can't force them to do it. But that was not done properly. You know, if the panel had come on and said, look, I think we should just adjourn this because of time and we haven't got time to do it, that would have been one thing. But they even sent their barrister to do almost their dirty work rather than do it themselves.
The problem with the organisation, it's basically our organisation. It's an amalgam of individual cases, and that's the difficulty. And particularly at meetings like this, there's a tendency to get down to individual cases, which we're trying to avoid, obviously, sometimes for charity reasons. But again, it's the annex.
I think from as a reporting point of view, what I would say is the process as an advocacy system, we are finding serious flaws, and those flaws generally are stopping, starting, the adversarial type of the process, complete lack of understanding by the registrants, understandably because of many reasons, and a tendency to not mind using sleights of hands on behalf of the NMC to mask the true realities of the situation, which is not fair for a registrant who's in a Stockholm type relationship with their regulator. You do not want to upset the regulator. I don't mind doing it for you. And that's what the advocacy system can do. If we need to stick the boot in, we can. Yeah, but it's what Peter says is right. There's, from what is happening, a list of common problems can be found.